Hello everyone, welcome to our video. As Lema Samara Al-Rahmah, Bulan Cantika Wiranda will give you a brief information about 9/11 attacks and the impact on hijab wearing in America. Enjoy! September 11, 2001, two planes hijacked by Islamic jihadists crashed into the two World Trade Center towers in New York. 2,977 people died in this incident. Here is one of the amateur video that accidentally captured 9/11.
I had one.
This attack involved the hijacking of a total 4 flights, which are: first, Flight 11 took off from Boston, bound for Los Angeles, California. Second, United Airlines Flight 175 took off from Boston, also bound for Los Angeles. Third, American Airlines Flight 77 took off from Dulles, outside Washington, D.C., bound for Los Angeles. And fourth, United Flight 93 took off from Newark, New Jersey, bound for California. Prior to the hijacking at 8:54 a.m., Muhammad Atta, a hijacker on Flight 11, made a mistake that leaked the news of the hijacking to the traffic controllers in Boston. It makes the National Air Guard come in to escort the plane. However, by 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 had crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center and caused the death of all passengers. In addition, employees were also trapped on the upper floors. At 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 followed, crashing into the South Tower of the World Trade Center, killing all aboard as well as many people inside this building. About 30 minutes later, Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. All passengers and military members in the building were killed. The U.S. government then closed the airways in the U.S. at that time, known as the Yellow Ribbon Operation. Flight 93, the last plane to be hijacked, successfully landed in an empty field in Pennsylvania, foiling the hijacking plan. At 9:59, the South Tower of World Trade Center collapsed, followed by the collapse of the North Tower at 10:28. The ruins of these two towers become known as Ground Zero. The leader of this terrorist act, Osama bin Laden, is one of the founders of Al-Qaeda, a militant Islamic terrorist organization. He called for the indiscriminate killing of all Americans who, according to him, are the worst thieves in the world today. There are also long-term domestic impacts of 9/11. Thousands of people are battling cancer and chronic health problems linked to the toxins from Ground Zero, the site where the Twin Towers once stood. The September 11 attacks also changed American air travel as airlines began requiring strict security checks designed to prevent the types of weapons used by the hijacker from getting through. The first Muslim may had arrived in America as early as 1178, when Chinese Muslim sailors landed on the west coast. Of the estimated 6 to 10 million American slaves who came to the United States in the following centuries, about 30% were Muslims. Despite Muslims' long presence in the United States and their diversity in terms of ethnicity, race, national origin, social class, and gender, the American public tends to view them as homogenized and as an undifferentiated distinct religious community. Some Muslims have been in the United States for generations, but are still viewed as outsiders, as different, and as the perpetual other. Although Americans of Japanese, Chinese, Polish, Irish, and African descent have also experienced otherness in the past, Muslims remain the other, the outsiders, the enemy, and the threat. Muslim women wearing hijab was one of the symbols of oppression against women who had no Western values. They were often mistakenly stereotyped as weak, powerless, and oppressed.
After the tragic events of September 11, 2001, American perspectives on Muslims changed significantly. Before this day, many Americans knew little about Islam or the Muslim community, often seeing them as distant or unfamiliar. However, after 9/11, when the attackers were identified as being part of an extremist group that claimed to act in the name of Islam, fear and suspicion toward Muslims began to grow. Many people in the United States started to associate Islam with terrorism. Even though the vast majority of Muslims around the world strongly condemned the attacks, this led to widespread stereotyping, where Muslims were often viewed through the lens of fear and mistrust. People who wore traditional Muslim clothing, such as hijabs or turbans, became targets of discrimination, and some were harassed or attacked simply because of their appearance. After the events of 9/11, the way many Americans viewed Muslim women wearing the hijab changed dramatically. The hijab, a headscarf worn by some Muslim women as a sign of modesty and religious commitment, became more visible in public discussions about Islam and Muslims in America. Unfortunately, it also became a target for stereotypes and misunderstandings. For some Americans, the hijab came to symbolize Islam itself. Because of the fear and suspicion that followed 9/11, women wearing the hijab were sometimes unfairly associated with extremism, even though the hijab has no connection to violence or terrorism. Discrimination and racism experienced by Muslim women. After the 9/11 attacks, Muslim women became the targets of religious-motivated violence and hatred. Badr 2004. Not only with the wrong stereotypes mentioned earlier, they were also considered as those who contributed to and supported the 9/11 attacks. This led to acts of discrimination, such as verbal harassment, physical attacks, or being treated unfairly in workplaces and schools. Many Muslim women felt unsafe wearing the hijab in public, but continued to do so out of personal faith and resilience. Hijab-wearing women received the brunt of hate incidents in the first few years after 11 September. As a result, some women stayed home. Others went out only in groups or in the company of non-Muslims. Many Muslim women in America said that they experienced harassment, like being yelled at, followed on highways, or told to go back to your country. Some men spat on their headscarves or tried to pull them off. Khalid Iqbal from CAIR in Washington, D.C. reported that women had their scarves pulled off and, in some cases, people even tried to set their scarves on fire with match. Muslim women's perspectives and attitudes towards hijab post 9/11. The incident of 9/11 divided American Muslim women's views on the hijab into two. Some of them took off their hijab out of fear, but there were also those who became more consistent or even started wearing the hijab. According to research conducted by Badr in Houston between November 2001 and March 2002, the result shows that there are differences between the immigrant and American Muslim women regarding their attitudes toward hijab following September 11. Immigrant women were less likely to wear hijab and more likely to be afraid to go out of their homes wearing their hijab than the American Muslim woman. By continuing or beginning to wear hijab, American Muslim women reported trying to bring attention to themselves in an effort to dispel anti-Islamic stereotypes. This in turn may have resulted in a more positive Islamic social identity that was more consistent with their individual views of Islam. Regardless of whether or not they wore the hijab before 9/11, many reported that the September 11 attacks made them rethink what it means to be a Muslim and the role of the hijab in that identity. Hijab as a way for American Muslim women to empower themselves. Since 9/11, many Muslim women have become more vocal and have begun to engage in social and political activities in America. Badr 2004 and Haddad 2007. Because the hijab is easy to recognize, Muslim women often represent their Islamic communities, especially when interacting with other religions and the media. Facing hatred, harassment, and violations of their rights has pushed Muslim Americans to connect more with non-Muslim Americans and take on a more active role in society. Muslim American organizations have worked hard to share a peaceful image of Islam and Muslim communities with the public. Part of this effort includes highlighting hijab-wearing women. The hijab and the role of Muslim women have drawn a lot of attention, and these organizations have created chances for Muslim women to engage with non-Muslims and society.
From the explanation above, it can be concluded that 9/11 incident not only brought negative impacts on American Muslim women, but also had positive impacts such as an increasing the visibility of Muslim women, especially through their hijab. American Muslim women have the opportunity to be involved in various social activities in America. The hijab, which initially intimidated them, has actually played a significant role in empowering American Muslim women. That's it from us. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching.